You are listening to Deconstruction Podcast, presented by the Architectural Authority magazine.
Our common friend, Ana Paula, we did a trip to Chicago. She was in my class, and we did a field trip to Chicago. So we went to the Art Institute
in
Chicago, which
beautiful.
is a beautiful building, neoclassical building. And she was standing there at the entrance, and she started crying. And I said, like, are you okay? Are you fine? It's like, this is the first time I see a building like this. And it was so beautiful for me to see it, because I saw myself, having those emotions.
Been there, exactly.
And just to see that in student is kind of the vitamin or the motivation to continue being involved with education, because it's it's a rewarding job with all the challenges and with all the changes and everything. It's just great. You live for those moments.
This episode is brought to you by Anima Domus, South Florida's premier destination for contemporary, made-in-Italy furniture, featuring the region's largest in-stock selection of Italian brands. Their expert team guides clients from furniture selection to complete space planning. With in-house logistics and white-glove delivery, every detail is handled seamlessly. To learn more, visit animadomus.com.
This is Deconstruction, a space where we explore the ideas, trends, and stories shaping the world of architecture, design, and construction. From creative vision to business challenges, we examine everything influencing the industry and how to navigate it. This podcast is produced by the Architectural Authority, a platform committed to supporting creators and giving voice to those who turn vision into reality. My guest today is Henry Rueda, architect, professor, and former chair of the Department of Architecture at the Florida International University from 2022 to 2026. His work bridges international professional practice, academic leadership, and civic engagement. Through education, art exhibitions, and community initiatives, his work advances architecture as both a cultural and civic instrument for transformation. Bienvenido.
Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, everyone. It's great. It's great being here.
I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to share this space. As and nobody knows, but Henry was my professor back in the days when we were both young, younger and happier, with our responsibilities. And he was one of my mentors. He was one of the persons that inspired me to keep doing what I'm doing. And when I migrated here, that was one of the people that I thought it would be. He was a professor. You study. Give us a little bit of the back of the story of your formation. What did you do? The beginning, so people might know who you are.
So I am originally from Valencia, which is a small city in Venezuela, and then I went to Caracas to study architecture, and that kind of changed my whole life, because before coming into architecture school, I had no idea what architecture was.
Wow.
In the sense of architecture studies, I mean, of course, buildings and cities, but and also it was in the early 80s, and the city was booming with art and everything was happening. Yes, everything was happening in those years. So to me, going into architecture school was also moving from a small city to a bigger city, and also enjoying the benefits of a moment where there was everything was happening, from music to theater to arts.
That's true.
To architecture. So I kind of got immersed into a new world that was not just designing or studying architecture. It was more complete in that sense. Then I worked with an architect, Jesus Tenreiro, in Caracas, and he encouraged me to continue my education after I completed my undergrad, 5 years. And then I went to Columbia University in New York City, under his kind of mentorship, because I remember receiving the sort of acceptance letter, and I told him, I'm going to wait for the other schools. He's like, no, you're going to New York. So, and it was, it's something that I will always remember. Then
he's an incredible architect, of a Venezuelan architect. Can you mention a little bit of his story, so people, because this podcast is focused on local people, and I had not had the opportunity to interview any Venezuelan architect like you, so you can give us a little bit of a Venezuelan story.
Well, Jesus Tenreiro is one of the most important kind of contemporary architects.
Contemporary, yes.
He designed many buildings, but he built very few. And every building in each sort of category is a masterpiece. So he did a city hall, he did a monastery, he did several houses, and
I
he
visit the monastery.
yes, and he was also like a very humanistic sort of person, very intellectual. So his life was opera, philosophy, and architecture. So I learned a lot from that kind of profile of architect
Mm-hmm.
that is not just the technical kind of engineering based architecture. Although he knew everything about
Mm-hmm.
construction, so designing with him was like talking about
He was
beams,
he is a Renaissance man, right?
yeah, like beams and slabs, but also he was making drawings on you know uh, more conceptual and dreams, and he was a kind of a follower, as we say now, of Jung.
Mm-hmm. Pardon.
So it was like a world that didn't exist for me
Before.
before. And then after I completed my studies in New York City, I went to work in Holland with an architect that
Wow.
was my professor at Columbia University, and I was there for a year and a half. And then I went back to New York. That's where I wanted to stay, but it was a moment where it was not the right moment to stay. So I went back to Venezuela with you know
With
the
all this knowledge and all this eager to,
and
implement
exactly, and that
after seeing the world.
yes, and also I wanted to start my own practice. I didn't want to like continue working in offices, and I started teaching and working at the same time. I guess
That's
that's
when I
when
when I met you. Uh-huh.
yeah, when you were my student in Caracas, and I always taught and worked like simultaneously.
It's a balance.
Yeah, but I was more inclined to my practice than teaching. So I was always kind of like an adjunct faculty member. I was never like a formal academic, and I never did the sort of the scholarly work. Um, but I
Until
always
now, no? Until now that you did it for.
kind of so it was like an activity that kept me engaged and informed, but my practice was my priority. So I had multiple offices with friends and partners. At some point, I had a lot of work, and I had two offices simultaneously. That was kind of crazy, but it was the best way to sort of answer the client's demands.
Totally.
So having to instead of having like a big office, I had two smaller offices with my
Okay.
friends and partners that were still
Scaling.
friends, and we do collaborations still. So when I moved to the United States, I came with an invitation from FIU to come and teach. And I also had a project here with a client. So the idea was to kind of commute back and forth because Caracas is, it's very close. But I realized that it was not really feasible. Like financially, it was very challenging. The project took longer than what I expected. My office in Caracas kind of started to slow down.
I mean, things in Venezuela started getting
Yes,
complicated.
kind of.
Yeah.
But also the opportunities here were growing. I was
Exactly.
enjoying my teaching. I found an amazing community at FIU, welcoming colleagues and a great institution. So my life kind of that year turned into more teaching
Education.
than practicing. So I continue my practice, kind of but slower practice, and more engaged with the university.
Yes.
And that it's been 12 years since I relocated here.
Wow.
I started from adjunct teaching to full-time faculty. Then in 2022, I became the chair of the department. Now I completed those 4 years, and I'm back to my
Beautiful.
teaching and full of projects and full of enthusiasm for
Beautiful. Beautiful.
what's next.
One of the things that I do love with the story is that, and it's the core of this interview, is the real meaning of the architect and architecture, because I do feel like we are perceived in I will say this culture, so, as something shallower than the meaning of our actual profession is. We are that person that merges art, a human, the human experience and the technicality of it, and all of that creates a product that needs to, feel and nurture the human being. So our role cannot be only technical, and I think and I feel the way that we are seen here is that. And you have now here the architect on record. Like, who is that guy? Is the guy that only transform an idea into a code. Wow, that's not something that for me when I was studying and from getting information from professors like you, That was not what inspired me to become an architect. What inspired me to become an architect was, okay, I can impact the world that I live in. I can create spaces, impact communities, families, like depending of whatever is your inclination, whatever is your heart is following, you can create impact in that area. And you mentioned the fact that you were first the practice and then the professor. You cannot teach something that you don't know what it is, that you have no experience, because when you teach, when you learn in the field and then you teach, you are teaching the reality of the experience. So one of the flaws that I see in the educational system from my perspective as a student was that I had professors that had never worked in the field. So you cannot even have like we said, I would say an intelligent conversation about making an idea reality if they had never done or executed a project. So, so I think that the strength of having that practice, I would say, poured into the students is an elevated way of educating, because they will come out with a different perspective, more realistic, more adapted to the real world, because people gets out of the school and they don't know what to do.
Well, yes. I mean, I agree and disagree.
We can do that.
Yeah, yeah, yes. No, because I think the schools of architecture have sort of a wider mission, right?
Mhm.
I, at this point in my life, I'm like a senior faculty member. I'm not the youngest, right? And I see the difference between the new faculty members that are very fast and very skilled in the software and the technologies that
Mhm.
I am past that phase, in the sense that I have I bring to school other experiences, and I bring
Mhm.
to school other sort of topics. Um, I think the schools have to show, from my point of view, the students the sort of the wide range of the architectural profession, because many students who complete their architectural degrees go into fashion, film, arts, graphics. I mean, like in the creative sort of design world,
Mhm.
design, industrial design, right? And not everyone is interested in following the architect's path, right?
Mhm.
Which in this country means completing the licensing, the
Mhm.
hours, the exams, and all of that. So I do enjoy the sort of the professional requirements of this country that are completely different than ours, right?
Totally. Mhm.
Um, and I also saw in Europe the type of architects that the schools produce, which are more like engineers slash architects, because that's
Well, the opposite, right?
yeah, that was the experience I had. In Holland, they were like, the office was like a technical office, but all the drawings were perfect. The precision, the calibration, it was all like working in an engineering field. Um, so every country or society have like a different sort of framework,
Mhm.
and I mean, I think, and I would love my students to be exposed to different ones, because then you learn from all of them, and then you have like a richer kind of bag of experiences. Um, a lot of times, I mean, especially in this country, the profession is demanding,
Mhm.
the economy is demanding. So many of those architects that do architect of record practices are amazing personalities that we don't get to see, because they're basically being committed to produce technical solutions, right?
Exactly.
So in that sense, the architect here is more of a team player in bigger offices. The idea
Mhm.
of, I mean, the solo architect, like in our countries, which is a more kind of like
Integrated
it's
approach.
it's yeah. So like, I mean, in Venezuela or in other countries, it's more of that singular sort of architect with a team. It's very difficult to have that here. So even the big figures have
teams, exactly,
gigantic
because
teams behind them, right?
the law here fractalized the role of the architect in different subcategories to create work and to make a
Yeah,
system,
yeah.
because the United States works perfectly because it has the systems implemented in a way that everything works.
And
And
yeah, and also not everybody has that interest of being that figure. Many
correct.
people have the interest of just having a great life, working,
Hmm.
participating, contributing, but they don't have that need,
The
the
architect
ego.
ego.
Yeah. So, and I think it's valid and it's great
Totally.
that it could happen like that.
Henry, if you had the opportunity to like create the perfect mix for an student, because you have gone through all of this international experience and you have taught in different countries as well, what would you do? You had the opportunity to be the chair in the FIU, and it's an structure that is already formed, right? And I know that sometimes can have some limitations. But if you had the opportunity to create that mix, what would you put in that soup for creating, the most proficient student, architect, or the newest generation in the making?
Well, I think the curriculum, as we call it, is fine. I think it has all the
Comprehensive.
elements that's needed. I mean, the FIU curriculum is not too different than the one that I went through as an architecture student. Um, Maybe one thing that I will ask right now my students is to maybe slow down a little bit and not race, but it's the pressure of the times that we're living in, right?
Totally.
So the idea that the architecture student travel just by their own sort of interest, maybe working a year in a company, uh, but I mean times are different. But I will add more time to the experience. I mean,
Mm,
there's a lot of pressure to graduate in four
faster,
years
exactly.
and 5 years and to jump into the
Production,
market.
money production,
Yes,
exactly.
which I totally understand it. I mean, I can't spend a year without working. I mean, like I'm saying something that I cannot
It's
do,
not
right?
possible within the
But
structure of this
I will say, like
economical system.
I'd receive many opportunities as being the chair of the department of internships in Europe, things like that. That would, I mean, require the students to spend 6 months in a different city, and for the students, it's very challenging to do that with and being sort of delayed in their graduation plans, right?
Wow.
So,
So they don't see the value. The majority
bueno,
of them
it's
don't,
not
don't
that
see
they
the.
don't see it; they do, of course, they do, but it's very difficult because
Yeah, it's money that they need to spend. It's time
exactly.
that they
So
get to, yeah.
yeah, and also but I think that comes with curiosity is being more engaged in the arts,
Hmm.
because I think this city has an amazing offer of the fine art, from
It's
fine arts
becoming, yeah,
to
becoming an
music
epicenter.
to everything, theater, and I follow or I attend performances
Every.
every month, and I've seen the most amazing people here. Um, so and sometimes I run into students, which I love, and they also have their own sort of artists that they follow because they're younger, which
Exactly.
is great. But I think understanding that the city is the place where all of that happens. I think it's the experience that we all need to enjoy and go through to be better sort of citizens and better designers and making this city better than what it is.
Yeah. One of the things that I picked from your intervention is the art. I do remember when I was a student, and we had a class called um, the art and the role of art in architecture, and we were studying different architects and the way that they incorporated art into their way of designing. So I when I did my master's here and when I did my education here, that was not part of it, as I experienced it. And one of the things that make me fall in love with architecture was the expression of the space involved collaboration, involved interdisciplinary, because the fact that is the architect is like the director of the orchestra, and there is a lot of things, activities, people, interest, community, space, geography, all of it playing at the same time, was fascinating for me. And the art, meaning being the thing that the majority of the people without academic instruction as an architect will feel first. Is the way
Yeah.
that the people feel the space, is the way that, are the elements, if they are incorporated, amazing, but are the elements that people will remember because they create instant emotions. And so, how do you see art in architecture? I know that you are deep into art. You have some initiatives in Venezuela. Tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about that.
No, well, I think, I mean, myself and you, we received this legacy of the modern architecture sort of golden days in
Hmm.
Caracas, right? So we lived in a city that was full of
Art.
incredible buildings that integrated arts in their spaces, right?
Hmm.
And it was something very natural. It was not imposed or codified. It was
Exactly.
something that was like a kind of comprehensive way to understand space. So we inherited that sort of bag of amazing
Knowledge, yeah.
spaces that in that city specifically, it was public spaces, it was, I mean, the subway stations, it was the university campus, it was any sort of civic building, any plaza, right? So we are privileged to have had that experience, but it
Hmm.
doesn't, I mean,
Exactly.
it comes with you, like it's in your DNA, right? And it's our kind of responsibility to transmit that. But not every city has that right. So I think
Especially modern cities in this country, like in this country, the cultural background and the history is located in different cities. You can find epicenters, but it's not something like you find through like Europe. Every city has art, has, it's a different way of building cities and communities.
yeah, well, I think it's also, I mean, the sort of the geography, right?
Hmm.
Because cities that are smaller, more dense, have, different sort of social responses, right? Like the United States have amazing cities, but they also have more compact, more dense cities like Chicago, New York, Boston,
Correct.
San Francisco, and cities that are more expanded, like Miami, right? So that makes it um, it's kind of like a different format, because I always tell people you can find everything that you can find in New York, you can find it in Miami. The difference is you have to drive. And in
Exactly.
New York City, everything is on top of everything, right? So you in the same block, you have, multiplicity of
Yeah, offers.
yes, and here
Everything had
all
to
those
happen in a.
communities exist and coexist, but they are like located in different sort of
We
clusters,
have
right?
space. We are horizontal.
Exactly. So but I mean, I have found sort of amazing, wonderful spaces here in Miami. But as I said, here and there, it's like you have to go find them. Um,
Exactly.
and it's my job as an educator to
Incentivate.
enjoy and also bring it to the classroom, right? So it's something that we do because we travel with students, we go
Wow.
visit other cities in the United States, we also have study abroad programs. So the students are exposed to that. I mean, today it's very easy for and economical to travel. So students travel a lot. And when I went to school, or when you went to school, that was not an option. We were just sitting there,
You did
right?
it
Go
after the fact.
exactly. So it was not part of that. And I see my students like they just go for a weekend, so it's easier, and I think it's great. And all of that stays. All of that builds
I
up.
do remember, this is funny, but I do remember the first time that I went to Barcelona and I started crying because every building that I was seeing there, I studied in a book. And it was the first time that I was able to experience the space with my body. So for the people that is architecting heart and they know how a space feels, because that's how architects go walk, touch the walls,
Well,
they stare at things.
I'm gonna give you an anecdote that you both are gonna enjoy. So our common friend Ana Paula, we did a trip to Chicago. She was in my class, and we did a field trip to Chicago. And I always kind of coordinated visits, So we went to the Art Institute
The art
of
industry,
Chicago, which is
beautiful,
a beautiful building,
amazing.
neoclassical building. And she was standing there at the entrance. There's like the stair and the grand entrance, and she started crying. And I said, like,
Totally.
"Are you okay? Are you fine?" It's like, "This is the first time I see a building like this," and it was so beautiful for me to
Of
see it,
course.
because I saw myself, having
We
those
have been there,
emotions, and
exactly.
um, and it was very honest. I mean, she was coming from another country, from Cuba. She was just relocated here, and just being in a city like
Wow.
Chicago is amazing, right? And I'm sure she's been now to many other countries, many other places, but just to see that in student is kind of the the vitamin or the motivation to continue being involved with education, because it's
Totally.
it's a rewarding job with all the challenges and with all the changes and all and everything. It's just great. You live for those moments.
Exactly. And that takes me to the next perfect transition, because for me, the responsibility that we have is that to create that space, to create that impression, to create emotions, to impact lives is the back or most important responsibility of architects. And if we are not taught to be meaningful, to design with intent, to learn as much as you can, to educate yourself, to travel, to understand the world, and to because
Mhm.
all of that happens after you get your education and your degree, your interest to go into different countries, learn different cultures, try to adapt to and create a specific results, but the end product should be that, creating a space that can create emotions.
Mhm.
So, how do you see that happening in this new era? Like how people is getting educated, and why are we having so many? I will say that buildings, like they are like dead. They have zero emotion. Practicality and functionality exist, but they do not transmit anything.
Yeah, I do. I think that this is a time of and it's a global sort of challenge, that architecture is more market based than philosophically sort of based, in the sense that um, we don't see that many sort of important competitions for sort of important
Buildings.
buildings,
Mhm.
right? There are, I mean, some, but
Some.
not as in the past. Um, there is a kind of the big names or the big companies kind of lead most of the important projects as a global reality,
Yeah,
right?
but as
So,
an individual brand, not as an intervention to the city to create something better. Like,
well, in some cases they do.
okay,
I mean, there are many good examples and some not great examples, but I will say the private client that commissions a house or commissions a space, there are amazing examples here in Miami and everywhere, but those are not visible. Those are not, those do not benefit the public, right?
correct,
So cities should do a better job engaging important architects into producing buildings that benefit the community better. In my practice and teaching, I have mainly private clients, and I design single family homes, and it's high end clients, but that's not what I teach. What
correct.
I teach is community. What I teach is public space,
Public engagement, exactly.
and and I bring my experiences as a designer into the conversation of all communities deserve the best design, right? The best experience, sort of, for everybody, not for the privileged, not for a few. And I also think this city has a potential to incorporate many sort of local histories, because our community is, everybody here, or almost everybody here have kind of
Different
background
heritages.
from a different country, in the Caribbean, in North America, in South America, and Central America. And one of my missions also as a professor is to highlight architecture from Latin American countries that many of our students don't know because they came here when they were younger and it's sort of local architecture of their own countries.
Okay.
So if I can plant that seed that what they left is something that
Also has value
that they
to
should
be proud of.
exactly looking at, I think that will produce better sort of
Professionals.
professionals and more responsive buildings, more kind of like
Totally, because they will follow from the schools to a different roles in different companies, and whatever they learn, and is the way that they will behave.
Mhm,
No, that's they will be their give back to community cities, the way
mhm.
that they learn to implement. Tell us a little bit about the work on the underline. I know that you were involved on something related to that, so that's one approach to intervene in the city and how you see that.
Yes, yeah, that was a great experience that I'm planning to go back this year. So I was invited by one of my colleagues in the landscape architecture program to be part of the design advisory committee. So
Beautiful.
the project came from New York, from the office of James Corner,
Mm.
who designed the High Line in New York, and it was it's like a maybe the most successful public space in the world because
Explain a little bit what it is for the people that don't know,
the
like what
High
it is.
Line is a linear park that was designed on existing train tracks that were abandoned for many, many years. And the beauty of the project is that the the space that was basically vacant
That
and dead had
residual space
people that care for that for
with
that
purpose.
for that area. So at some point they created some kind of movement to preserve it, and they got the support of the city. From that, they organized an international competition
Hmm.
that was won by Dillard Scofidio Renfro, um, James Corner, and botanist from the Netherlands, Piet Olodolf,
Mm.
and they all designed this amazing public space, and it became a game changer in areas of the city that were
Similar conditions.
well, it was nothing. There was nothing. What now is Hudson Yards didn't exist um, 10, 15 years ago. So they they created value for that land, and they have an amazing public arts program and many things. So something similar happened here in Miami. It was an initiative of Meg Daly, who used to ride her bicycle under the metro rail shade, and she saw the opportunity. She started kind of working with to create this program. She received support from the city, similar, and
Beautiful.
then the same office that would design the highlight were contacted to create a master plan, and they designed the first phase, which is from the Miami River to Coral Way,
Okay.
which is the Brickell backyard, and that is built and is it's been incredibly successful too. So we work not in the design of the park, but in communicating the the new developers and the new not the new developments that were facing the underline, what the park was, the kind of regulations, the invitation to
And
um,
continuing that.
yeah, but also to not see or to see that public space is a benefit and it's not a problem. So we had many meetings with all the companies that were designing, not the architects per se, but more like the developers. And it was great for me to see how the city operates because it's not just that space, but it's everything that it implies. Is the neighborhoods associations, is um, Florida like FPL, FDOT, the county, the cities.
Everybody.
It's everybody, all the stakeholders. So it was almost like a master of urban design that or urban planning that we went through, and we see all the benefits. I mean, every time there is an event, it's packed. We see a lot of people. We
I
see
love it.
yoga classes,
Anything
music,
is possible. It makes
and
it
it's
possible.
and it's also some kind of surprise. I mean, when I have visitors, I take them to the underline, and
They're amazing.
they're amazed, and
Hmm.
it's also, and it's gonna run from the Miami River all the way to Dateland. So it's a long, long project that is now going across the US one. Um, so in a sense, it made me kind of belong to the city because I got the opportunity to also meet
Connect.
and interact with a lot
Exactly.
of actors. The county was always great, and I mean everybody was super receptive. People don't know, and they're most times they fear what what they don't know. So those meetings, those conversations were great. Now, I mean, I reach out to my colleagues um, to return to my role, and maybe one of the places where I will play a role is in the arts in public space program
Love
that
it.
they have, right? Because it's something that I feel prepared to contribute, and also the park is ongoing.
Exactly.
Um,
It's an ongoing
yes,
development. And that's one of the things that I wanted to mention.
when we started, we had to explain what it was, and we look at the
Digested for the stakeholders and for everybody involved, because creating a plan, an urban plan, like an intervention to the city that will take years and will go through different governments or leaders. It is a, I would say, a resilience work. You need to be there, you
uh,
need to be constant, you need to maintain the essence of the project, walk it through despite different government changes and different leaderships, because sometimes it's a contractor, it's a developer, it's
mhm.
the investment which is not aligned, it changes, and then you need to do change management and transform and risk, etc. So it is beautiful that in this country it's possible.
No, and also, I mean, we show a lot of the good examples, like the one in Atlanta, which is quite nice. The one in New York City, but always New York City seems
To
like
be
an
ahead.
like an aspiration that you're not gonna get, right? So, but it's there, and it's a successful story, and it's also proof that the people in every section of the
It's
city
possible.
need public space, right?
I wanted to introduce now, that I think is the perfect transition to all of these topics, Henry. That now with social media and everything, the majority of the, I won't call it trends, but it's like the evolution of our industry. Many people was talking about sustainability, green buildings, etc. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and now it's regeneration. Regeneration is being discussed in the international palestry for many, many, many years. But in Miami, it's zero, unseen. Whatever is regeneration or well-being, and the well movement now is coming to Miami. I think the first well building is going to be built this year. So it started being built this year, but it's not fully well certified, etc. So all of this movements, or I will say new practices, or remember practices, or
Mhm,
that now are focused in the human development, because public spaces are focused on the human experience of the space. We are not island, we are communities, and we live in spaces that should support that, right? So all of this uh, trends or practices, the core is the same. The core is to improve the way that we live, right? Um, but the challenge, and I'm saying all of this introduction to go back to the stakeholders and to the
mhm,
investors, right? The challenge is to influence the shareholders, the developers, the investors, the cities, and etc., to really look at regeneration, look at sustainability, not as a problem, not as a not as another challenge to be
mhm,
resolved, but as a platform or a set of techniques or rules that will make the space better. In consequence, we should be doing that. We should be talking about that in those tables and in those conversations. Okay, what is regeneration? What are we don't having these conversations more in Miami?
mhm. Yeah, no, I mean, Yes, we do have. Well, I mean, the university is the perfect space for this
Melting pot.
research because that's what we do, right?
Exactly.
And it's we have the experts, we have the students, we have the labs, we have the technology. So we do that every single day, right? We have, I mean, in the curriculum, we have a studio that is a sustainability studio where students kind of go through performance metrics of buildings with softwares
Hmm.
and many of the layers
Simulations, uh-huh.
of creating kind of net
Better
zero
spaces.
or carbon positive buildings, right? It stays in the academia for now, but it's gonna go outside because usually that's the process how it happens, right? We have in the Doctor of Design program research assistants and research students, candidates working on um, sea walls and kind of sea level rise solutions that are more organic,
Hmm.
using concrete and
The bricks and
elements that do not destroy the local fauna, but also can incorporate technology to sense sort of climate or pollution or changes.
because
So it is happening, and it will kind of be disseminated to the industry as much as the industry and the city needs it, right? Because right now you need to have the code, right? You need to like have the client asking you for that
exactly.
type of architecture, and everybody's asking at this point, right?
Exactly.
Because the community is aware of the challenges, and also the perhaps, and that's where we have not been effective, is in
Catching
producing
on.
or showing the added values of having a building that consumes less energy, that is more friendly to the environment than a regular building that it's not conscious of the orientation of the sunlight, of the
No,
winds or anything, right? So now the community in general, not just the architects, are more aware of these challenges and the benefits. I think we are the ones, when someone asks an architect for a project, their their the ask is for something functional and economical, right? We as professionals are the ones who have to add that extra um, layer of conceptualizing, exploring, experimenting, because they don't ask because they don't know, right?
exactly.
And
That's my
we are the
point.
ones that need to say, we need this
Teach
covered
them.
area because then that's going to lower the temperature, and we need to recess this glass. I mean, that's our job. And I mean, I think universities do that. All the schools here, right? In terms of reuse and readaptation, we have one good example, and it's something that is yet to happen, which is the Marine Stadium,
Mm,
in Virginia Beach on the way to Key Biscayne. That it's been in conversations for many many years.
wow.
At this point, it's a ruin that we have, but it will be transformed into something amazing, for sure. Yes, in Europe, the cities are like living museums of old architecture, old buildings, and people are very used to that. So
Here.
as a tradition, as a society, they live with the old buildings next door, and they inhabit those buildings. America in general, like it's not the United States, but in general, is a continent of the new. So,
Totally.
we want new, we want modern, we want that, right? As a general condition, right? Yes, we have historical centers that are older and younger, but as a kind of more general, people want the kind of that new. So, it will come, it will happen. I'm at this point in conversations to do an international collaboration with one colleague in the School of Architecture in Caracas, two that are in Sweden, in Stockholm, one that is in Belgium, to produce a studio experience based on reuse. based on, because
Region. I'm
because
studying that too.
do we need to build more? Maybe not. And these exercises will be located in Caracas. That because of the diaspora, there are many vacant buildings.
Buildings.
So do we need to build more when
Interesting.
we have all these
Mhm.
houses, infrastructure that is
Repurposing,
completely
changing the use.
abandoned? So it's a topic, and there is a school that we are trying to create an agreement with FIU in Paris that they have a full master's on reuse. And it's, I think right now we are in a much better position generally of people are more aware of the sort of the costs of, importing, exporting materials and labor and all of that. And people are more um, interested in growing what you can do here. Like, it happens in landscaping. Like almost everybody knows that a native plant is the choice,
Correct.
right? And
Now, no before.
exactly,
And
exactly.
20 years
So,
ago, they
so
were flu plants.
exactly. So right now, I mean, that's a simple example. It's not simple in the sense that it's small, but it's something that is already here,
Yes.
right? And that's happening also in construction, right? I mean, the idea that you destroy a mine in, I don't know, in Turkey to bring it's like a material
Slabs.
for a bathroom in here in Doral. It's something that it's
Needs to get transformed.
yes,
That-
and also create the local industries, because we have the oolite, we have the coral stone, which is the most beautiful,
many alternatives.
and they're the ones that resist this weather perfectly.
Especially the part of the transformation of my career that brought me here is exactly that gap that I see now in between all the knowledge that exists, because I do not believe that it's not that the conversations are not happening, or the education is not advancing. There are, as you mentioned, and with your great explanation, there is schools, there is training, there is many people working on the theory of it. There is a gap in between the implementation, like why we are not still taking this as a rule, and how we can, create from our from my position. What I'm doing now is trying to bring the conversation up. Why not? What are the limits? Why do you pick this and that? Within my own role, which is being a project developer, a contractor, what I do, okay, I create budgets and I introduce this, as you said, well, you are the professional. If you have the knowledge, you are the one that is in the position to offer other alternatives. The client will not know. But that's one of the things that to close this conversation. What can we do, Henry? From your perspective, that you have, you have a broader perspective than mine. I'm in this niche of implementation, and I wanted to implement these buildings, and I'm trying to talk to developers, talk to different people. What can we do?
Well, I mean,
To
the
bridge
best
the gap.
the best advice is to keep the conversation going, right? Because a lot of times is something I don't know that you are doing, you don't know that I am doing, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, one sort of difficult, challenging aspect is that sort of academic times are slower than industry times, right? You have a client, exactly. You have a client, and they call you on Monday, and they want something ready on Tuesday, right? Academic times are slower, but that doesn't mean that you cannot build from existing research, ongoing research, and use that as part
Support.
of your support. So, but I think it's about keeping this forum of how to talk, how to bring the industry into the academia, into the regulators and the cities, and we try to do that, and we do it, and I think it will continue evolving, and always optimistic. And I think I see a lot of much better sort of architecture in this city for many reasons. I mean, the international architects that are coming here, good examples.
Where there is money, there is
but also like I mean
opportunities.
the Paris Art Museum. It's a great example of tropical architecture that maybe produces a lot of spaces that are not easy to monetize because it's all the outdoor
Outdoor.
experience spaces, right? Or all that experience, and those are examples to replicate, right? And we take students all the time and to visit the building and to kind of use it as a precedent, and it will be implemented in many examples in future
Because you
architecture
see, when
because
you
we need
experience
we
it.
need a good precedents, right? And they're here. So keeping the conversation alive, I think it's the only trick to make this happen.
Thank you, Henry. And opening the space to talk to anybody that wants to talk about this regeneration, ecology, public spaces, like how we can make cities better. Thank you, everything.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Deconstruction Podcast. Your 5-star reviews really help us continue what we do. Please rate your listening experience, and let's keep building this beautiful community together. For exclusive access to more design content, visit thearchitecturalauthority.com or download our app from the App Store or Google Play. Until next time, stay creative.